Out in the wild, where the trees stand tall and the shadows play tricks, I found myself on a hunting trip with my buddies, Jack and Lisa. We thought it'd be a weekend of laughs, tracking deer, and sharing stories around the campfire. Little did we know, something lurked in the woods that wasn't part of our plan. The forest was dense, and the night seemed to swallow our campsite. The fire crackled, casting long, flickering shadows that danced on the tree trunks. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the promise of rain lingering in the clouds. As we sat by the fire, roasting marshmallows and swapping tales, a distant howl cut through the night. We all paused, glancing at each other. Jack, trying to keep it light, said, "Just a coyote, probably." But the unease lingered in the air, like a chill settling on our bones. We decided to call it a night and crawled into our sleeping bags inside the tent. The forest outside felt alive, every rustle and hoot echoing in the darkness. But then, a low growl echoed through the trees. My eyes met Jack's and Lisa's, and we all knew, this wasn't just some animal. I unzipped the tent, and we ventured out into the night, armed with flashlights. The shadows played tricks on us as we moved through the woods, the tension thickening with every step. Sarah's flashlight caught a glimpse of eyes staring at us from the darkness, and a chill ran down my spine. The growls persisted, getting closer. Panic set in as we stumbled backward, our flashlights trembling in the dark. Whatever was out there didn't want us around, and the forest seemed to tighten its grip on us. Back at the tent, we huddled together, our ears strained for any sound. The night felt alive with an unseen menace. Mark suggested leaving, but the fear of the unknown kept us rooted to the spot. Then came the footsteps, deliberate and slow, circling our camp. Our breaths hitched, and our flashlights darted in every direction. The forest seemed to close in, and we were trapped in a nightmare. The night wore on with the growls intensifying. Shadows danced on the tent walls, and the air was thick with dread. Mark whispered, "We need to leave," but the fear of what lurked outside paralyzed us. And then, silence fell over the forest. No crickets, no wind, just an eerie quiet. A guttural snarl shattered the silence, and our eyes were drawn to it. A massive, dark figure emerged from the shadows, its eyes glowing with hunger. We ran, leaving behind the tent and our gear. The creature pursued us, its growls echoing through the woods. Roots and branches snagged at our feet as we sprinted through the dark. When we burst into the clearing where we had set up camp, the creature's growls ceased. We dared to look back, and there it stood, a colossal figure with eyes burning like embers. It watched us for a moment, as if deciding whether to chase us further. Then, with a final, bone-chilling howl, it vanished back into the depths of the forest. We didn't stop running until we reached the safety of our car. The engine roared to life, and we sped away, leaving the haunted woods behind. We never spoke of that night again, but the memory lingered like a ghost. The hunting trip that turned into a nightmarish chase through the heart of the unknown, a tale we couldn't shake, a fear we couldn't forget. Out in the woods, where the trees stand tall and the night gets thick, I went on a hunting trip with my buddies, Sam and Jenny. We figured it would be a weekend of fun, tracking game, and sitting by the fire. Little did we know, something else was out there, watching us. The forest was dense, and the darkness swallowed our campsite. The fire crackled, casting shadows that danced on the trees. The air smelled of damp earth, and clouds hinted at rain. We sat around the fire, sharing stories and roasting marshmallows. A distant howl cut through the night, making us pause. Sam joked, "Just a coyote," but unease lingered. We decided to call it a night, crawled into our sleeping bags, and the forest felt alive. Then, a low growl echoed. Eyes met, and we knew it wasn't just some critter. I unzipped the tent, and we ventured out with flashlights. Shadows played tricks as we moved, the tension thickening. Jenny's light caught eyes in the darkness, and a chill ran down my spine. The growls got closer. Panic set in as we stumbled backward. Whatever it was, the woods didn't want us there. Back at the tent, we huddled, ears straining. The night felt alive with menace. Sam said, "Maybe we should leave," but fear kept us frozen. Footsteps, deliberate and slow, circled our camp. Our flashlights darted in every direction. The forest seemed to close in, trapping us in a nightmare. The growls intensified. Shadows danced on the tent walls, and dread hung in the air. Sam whispered, "We need to leave," but fear of the unknown held us back. Then, silence fell. No crickets, no wind, just an eerie quiet. A guttural snarl shattered it, and our eyes found a massive, dark figure emerging from the shadows. Eyes glowed, hungry. We ran, leaving the tent and gear behind. The creature pursued, growls echoing. We sprinted through the dark, branches snagging at our feet. In the clearing, the creature's growls stopped. We dared to look back, and there it stood, colossal, eyes burning like embers. It watched for a moment, deciding. With a bone-chilling howl, it vanished into the forest. We didn't stop running until we reached our car. The engine roared, and we sped away, leaving the haunted woods behind. We never spoke of that night again, but the memory lingered, a hunting trip turned nightmarish, a fear impossible to forget. Out in the wild, where the trees grow thick and the night gets darker than your worst fears, I found myself on a hunting trip with my buddies, Mark and Sarah. We thought it'd be a weekend of laughs, beers, and maybe bagging a big buck. Little did we know, we were the ones being hunted. We set up camp in a clearing surrounded by ancient trees that seemed to touch the sky. The fire crackled, casting eerie shadows that danced on the tree trunks like ghostly specters. The air was thick with the smell of damp leaves and the distant promise of rain. As we sat around the fire, swapping stories and roasting marshmallows, the forest around us turned into a symphony of chirping crickets and rustling leaves. It was peaceful, until a distant howl shattered the calm. We all paused, exchanging glances. "Probably just a coyote," Mark said, trying to shrug it off. But I saw it in his eyes, a flicker of doubt that mirrored my own unease. We decided to call it a night and crawled into our sleeping bags inside the tent. The forest outside seemed to hold its breath as we lay there, the only sound being the distant hoot of an owl. That's when it started, a low growl that vibrated through the ground. My heart skipped a beat, and I shot a look at Mark and Sarah. They were wide awake, eyes darting around in the darkness. I unzipped the tent slowly, peering outside. Nothing but shadows and trees. But the feeling of being watched was unmistakable. We armed ourselves with flashlights and crept into the night, scanning the woods for any signs of movement. The air grew heavy with tension as we moved deeper into the forest. Sarah's flashlight caught a glimpse of something, eyes reflecting the light, staring at us from the blackness. We froze, and the eyes disappeared. A moment later, the distant growl echoed again, closer this time. Panic set in as we stumbled backward, our flashlights trembling in the darkness. Something was out there, something that didn't want us in its territory. We made our way back to the tent, but the forest seemed to close in around us. The trees whispered secrets, and the wind carried a sinister melody. Sleep was impossible, every rustle of leaves made us jump. As the night wore on, the growls and howls intensified. Shadows danced on the tent walls, and our nerves were stretched thin. Mark suggested packing up and leaving, but the fear of whatever lurked out there kept us paralyzed. Then came a sound that sent shivers down our spines, footsteps, slow and deliberate, circling our camp. We huddled together, our breaths shallow, trying to make sense of the nightmare unfolding around us. Suddenly, the forest fell silent. No crickets, no wind, just an oppressive quiet. And then it came, a guttural snarl that vibrated through the air. The very ground beneath us seemed to tremble. In the pale glow of the dying fire, we saw it, a pair of glowing eyes, predatory and hungry. Whatever it was massive, lurking just beyond the reach of our feeble flashlights. Without a word, we knew we had to run. We abandoned the tent, leaving behind our gear, and sprinted through the dark woods. The creature pursued us, its growls echoing through the night. We stumbled over roots and fallen branches, our breaths ragged. The distant safety of our car felt like an eternity away. As we burst into the clearing where we had set up camp, the creature's growls ceased. We dared to look back, and there it stood, a colossal, shadowy figure with eyes that burned like embers. It watched us for a moment, as if deciding whether to pursue further. Then, with a final, bone-chilling howl, it melted back into the depths of the Blackwood forest. We didn't stop running until we reached the safety of our car. We sped away, leaving the haunted woods behind. We never spoke of that night again, but the memory lingered like a ghost. The hunting trip that turned into a nightmarish chase through the heart of the unknown, a tale we couldn't shake, a fear we couldn't forget.